I'll be talking about a few things that have been going on this week with the Eagles and a few things around the NFL. So if you're joining me, thank you. Let's get straight into it. Okay, so Jalen Hurts had ankle surgery this week. Today. It's been, rumored ever since he came out of the game, the Bucks game, the last game of the season, with that walking boot, that he could potentially need, a procedure to clean up, something going on with his ankle. During the season, I underplayed it. I thought, it's just something small, something minor. I didn't, completely rule out, a possible procedure at the end of the season. But since nothing came out right after the season was over, I was figuring, no, he'll just rest this next month after the season. He'll be ready for OTAs and all that, no problem. But today came out that he actually needed surgery. He needed, to clean up something going on. And, I give him this. He's a tough kid. He battled through it. He missed one game where Gardner Minshew stepped in against the Jets. It was perfect timing for the Eagles. He got his rest in, but he came back the next week. And, he was still running the ball, even though we could obviously tell that he was not running the same. What's up, Mitchie? What's good, man? Thank you for joining the chat. It was obvious that he wasn't running on the same strength that he was at the beginning of the season. He was breaking people's ankles and, just doing his work on the ground. And that started to, go down as the season went because of that ankle injury, the late in the season. So it's all good, but I just think he's a tough kid. He actually proved something to me. He proved that he can play through injury. In 2022, let's be honest, these athletes don't play through injuries like they used to, and that's not a knock on them. They got to take care of their bodies. They got to be smart. But, the great ones, they battle through the injuries when they can play, and Jalen Hurts did that. I'm not saying he's a great one, not saying he's in that conversation yet, but he did come to play, and, he suited up for the Birds, and we got to give him some love for that. We got to give him, his credit for toughing out that injury. So with that said, let's talk about Tom Brady. Okay, so Tom Brady, he retired. There was speculation from Adam Schefter because he spilled the beans on the news a little too early for Tom. And Tom, he went back to the drawing board and said, I'm still debating it, this and that. But it was definitely, he was definitely going to retire. I didn't think he was. I was actually pretty surprised considering the year he had this year. I was actually pretty surprised he retired. I thought this guy was going to play till maybe 50, honestly. And let's be honest here. He could. He's that good. He's the GOAT, and, I would like to also talk about this. The Eagles fans and media has this kind of weird obsession with Tom. All right. And whenever something in the news is involving Tom, you can go to Twitter and you can definitely see, but we beat you in the Super Bowl. We did this. The Eagles are the only team to beat you in the. It's like, all right, guys, listen. Let's act like, this guy is the GOAT. Let's give him his respect. We don't always have to bring that up every time, man. We all know we beat him. We all know that. I just think there's this kind of weird, thing going on with Tom Brady. And now that he's retired, obviously we beat him in the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? We don't have to bring it up every damn time. You know what I'm saying? I'm just kind of tired of that narrative with the, this obsession with Tom Brady. Let's let him ride off into the sunset. We got him in Super Bowl 52, and we took care of business. So let's let it go now, y'all. Let's let it go. We're champions, all right. With that said, let's get straight into this poll, man. So we had a poll this week on Eagles Real Talk, and the question was: if the Eagles use all 3 first-round picks, what's the best case scenario? Let me know below in the comments. So the poll was 890 people voted. Thank you for voting, by the way. The poll was, to choose your combination of players that you were thinking about, having as far, if you were the GM, what would you want to draft? And the number one voted was linebacker plus an edge plus a cornerback. And I'm definitely not opposed to that. That's definitely something that I would love to see in this draft, that just goes straight to the defense, that reassures the defense, and it just builds, a defense with some young guys that we can actually grow with. The defense is filled with a lot of old guys, let's be honest. Fletcher Cox is getting up there, McLeod is getting up there, and these guys can't play forever, And Brandon Graham, he's going to be coming off of an Achilles injury, which is an intense injury, a lot of rehab. And from the looks of it, from him talking in the media and saying the things that he's been saying, it looks like he's getting ready to, retire this next year. He may not even come back from this injury, honestly. But I think he's a bird for life, and he's going to come back and he's going to give it his all next year. But it'll probably be his last, and I think he's going to transition into a media role. But with that said, let's get straight into, the questions and what everybody had to say as far as their answers go. So Tarun, I hope I'm not butchering your name, he said, I think the Eagles should go for a corner, linebacker, and edge because they need a playmaker at linebacker, a young corner to develop, and an edge to replace the missing edges next season. And I would have to agree with you on that. We need a young corner. I know we drafted McPherson last year, but he's a fourth-round project, let's be honest. He may not ever be a number one or a bona fide number two corner in this league, so we just have to sit back and wait on that. We don't know what he's going to be yet. And to draft one in the first round, that's more of a sure thing. Obviously, Howie's missed on a few first round picks, especially on defense over the past 8-9 years, however long he's been drafting. But with that said, I still like Howie drafting in this first round and using all three picks. So I would have to agree with you on that. Bromato Dragon said, if we use all three, my dream draft is Linderbaum, Sauce, and Lloyd. I know edge is a huge must, but solidifying those three positions makes this team bonkers. And I have to agree with you, Dragon. You know what I'm saying? If we get Lloyd, I think Devin Lloyd, he's a linebacker from Utah. If you haven't already, check out my list of all my draft prospects that I've been covering the past, 7, 8, 9 days. I'm dropping one every day, so make sure to check that out. But he's definitely my favorite draft player coming up. You know what I'm saying? My favorite draft prospect coming up. I just love him as a cover linebacker. That's something I can't remember the last time we've had a legit guy that can go out there, cover guys, cover the screen game, and just run all over the field and be flying all over the field. And Devin Lloyd can do that. He's also got the IQ, the mental, above the shoulders, which I love. He was a captain. He's he won a bowl game. So this guy, he has pedigree, and we need guys with pedigree. Even though he's at Utah, he's not in the SEC or the Big Ten, anything like that. He's still got the skills that'll transition to the NFL. So I'm really hoping the Eagles get him. He's one of my dream scenarios as well. Linderbaum is I covered him as well. He is a road grader, man. I love this guy. He's a big guy from Iowa. He's a center, so obviously, Jason Kelsey's going to be retiring soon, so we're going to need a guy to fill that role soon. So I'm all for drafting Linderbaum to get that replacement going. And then Sauce, I dropped that video today on Sauce. Make sure to check that out. Sauce Gardner, he hasn't even allowed a touchdown, man. And it's not like he's playing up against a lot of big name receivers, but at the same time, if you play a position for 3 years, you're a 3-year starter like he's been, and you haven't gave up one touchdown, and that's your sole role as a cornerback, to not give up big plays, to not give up touchdowns, to hold your guy to 0 touchdowns, less catches as possible, least amount of catches as possible. He has done that. And even though he's on the thinner side, he's 6'3", 200 pounds, kind of built like a basketball player. But I like that. You know what I'm saying? I like that he has the length and the range to cover, a plethora of guys down there. So let's get straight into the next one. Alora wrote, in most mock draft simulations I run at PFF, Number 15, all linebackers. The top two, at least, Devin Lloyd and Nakobe Dean. It doesn't make sense, but the computer constantly leaves Ojabo on the board at number 15. Ojabo would be awesome. If we got Ojabo and we could get Devin Lloyd or Nakobe Dean, that is my dream scenario. Those three players are just awesome at the collegiate level, and I think that's going to transition into the NFL. Let's check out the live chat. Give me 1 second, man. Let's check out the live chat and see what y'all are talking about before I read the rest of the questions. Okay, hold on 1 second. So we got the GOAT Mechie in here. I think this is gonna force Hurts to be a pocket passer for now on. That's interesting because obviously, he led the league in rushing this year. Him and Lamar Jackson are the top two running quarterbacks in the league. And, I could definitely see that. I could see him transitioning into more of a pocket passer because let's be honest here. You can't run like that forever. It's just the science of the game. You're going to get hurt. It's just inevitable. It's inevitable that you're going to sustain some little injuries. So, it's going to happen. But I think this may change his philosophy in his head from being, checking around the field and then running. Maybe he'll check around the field and he'll stay in that pocket a little bit more and he'll let it loose a little bit. This could change his mentality because the best ability is availability. And if you can't even get on the field because you're injured all the time, you're gonna be replaced. That's just how it goes. And we already seen this with Mike Vick. Mike Vick is my favorite Eagles player of all time. He's my favorite. He's just the most exciting player I've ever watched play football. And the one thing about him is we knew he was going to sustain a lot of injuries throughout the season. He was going to take a lot of hits just off the way he plays. And yes, they're two different players. Mike Vick couldn't slide worth a damn, unfortunately. And, he took a lot of head hits, just a lot of rib shots. Jalen, on the other hand, is really good at sliding. He's got that baseball slide down. So I think it's something that he can overcome if he still wants to be, a running quarterback. But you're right. He's going to have to fall back into more of a passer role as his career goes. So that's a good point. Naheem Hood, as far as linebackers in the draft is concerned, the only linebacker the Eagles really need the most is Lloyd. I definitely agree with you. I would say Nakobe Dean is 1A, 1B with Lloyd. The only difference is Lloyd played at a smaller school. He played at Utah. Dean, he played with the big boys in the big boy league. So he's a little bit maybe more ready as far as the physicality of the football game goes. But as far as IQ, Devin Lloyd he's up there, man. I think he's gonna be a special player in this league. No knock on Dean. I just think it's 1A, 1B, and I give the slight edge to Lloyd. Naheem, again, he wrote, Booth Jr. from Clemson is the cornerback the Eagles need. I definitely would not mind Booth. I think that guy is tough. A few days ago, I posted his prospect video as well. If you haven't already, check that out. I posted his video and somebody in the comments was writing, he's like a linebacker. If you didn't see the cornerback, as his position, you wouldn't know. Well, what's wrong with that? You know what I'm saying? We need a guy who's going to, protect in the run game, who's not going to be he's just going to be a tough player overall. Is just going to go in there and make tackles and make plays. Booth Jr., he can get interceptions and he can also cover in the run game. And he's somebody that I definitely have my eye on. And if he's available between 15 and 19, I say go get him, Howie. Let's go straight into the next question. Let's be real. There will be a lot of defensive players taken in the first round. He was responding to Naheem, and I agree with you on that, the GOAT. I definitely agree. Blaze Sellers wrote, hey, just got here. What's up, my guy? What's up, man? What are we talking about? All right, we're talking about prospects in the draft, obviously. We're talking about Jalen Hurts' injury and how it's going to affect him going forward. So, yeah, jump in and let me know. Us being bottom tier of sacks concern me. I agree with you, Mechie. I agree with you, man. I thought one of my predictions at the beginning of the season was I thought this defensive line was going to possibly lead the league in sacks. Last year, the prior year, we were up there. We were one of the top teams, and then we just completely fell off. I don't know where we finished. The last time I checked, we were ranked 29th in the league in sacks, which is crazy considering we have the highest paid defensive line in the game, and that's on Howie. That's on Howie. And also Brandon Graham's injury played a big role in that. But at the end of the day, that's on Howie. Howie went out there, he dished out all this money, and these guys didn't produce like we thought they would. And obviously he thought they would. So that is definitely going to be playing in Howie's mind. And I think no matter what, we're going to walk out of that first round with an edge or a defensive line player, because Howie has a lot of pride, and he's going to go out there and be like, okay, I'm going to go out there and draft Brandon Graham's replacement, or I'm going to go out there and get Fletcher's replacement, whatever. He's going to get guys that are going to be, top tier, defensive linemen in the league this draft. I know it. He's going to walk out of the first round with one. I personally don't care as long as we get the best player available with those first 3 picks in the first rounds. But at the end of the day, Howie has a lot of pride, and I feel like he's going to go after an edge rusher. I just feel like that's just his MO. So let's get back to the poll. So I'm reading these comments from the poll question I asked you guys a few days ago. So we had about 900 votes. So if you're wondering where these are coming from, it's if you just check back on the community tab on my page, you'll see all of these. So Jay Sleep wrote, I say edge, cornerback, and a linebacker, but I would not be mad with a great wide receiver again, but a free agency pickup will be good too. I know 3 years of first-round picks going in the first round is tough, but we still aren't there yet, so I wouldn't mind because we have 3. I agree with you. Jay Sleep, because at the end of the day, Jalen Reagor has underachieved. He's severely underachieved at this point. He's underachieved so much that he was picked last year, and he's already a number 3, and he was barely a number 3 on this team. And from the writings on the wall, it looks like he may want out. He may want a fresh start somewhere else. And it's best for everybody involved if we can somehow move him to another team, maybe pick up a draft pick. Obviously that roster spot is gone, and we can bring in another wide receiver to fill that position, whether it's in free agency, like you said, or if we go and take another swing at a wide receiver this draft. There's a lot of good ones. I've highlighted through my draft process so far, Treylon Burks, Olave, Garrett Wilson's going to be coming up, Drake London, and Jameson Williams from Alabama, who I think is a sleeper in this draft, who I think we may be able to get with that 19th pick if we take a couple defensive players. And then if Jameson Williams is still on the board at 19, I would not mind taking him. I know he had an ACL tear in that last game of the season. But look at these guys. They bounced back from ACLs, and they're at the same speed that they were prior. So it doesn't really scare me as far as that ACL tear like it would 5-10 years ago. The science and the sports science behind these recovery times has definitely gotten a lot better, and I could see us drafting him. So if we take a wide receiver again, I know it'll be the 3rd year in a row, but the name of the game is to score touchdowns, and we've drafted obviously Devontae Smith, who's just gonna be an Eagle for life. I feel like he's gonna be a baller. Next year he's gonna be over. I predict next year he's gonna be somewhere around 1,200 yards. Maybe 10 touchdowns. I feel like he's going to take a big leap next year. At the end of the year, he talked in his press conference that he didn't reach some of the goals that he had for himself. I think that was definitely over 1,000 yards, and I think next year he's going to come back better than ever. We're going to definitely target him more next year in our offense, whether it's Jalen Hurts throwing on the ball or a rookie or, a veteran. However the quarterback situation shakes up, Devontae Smith has got to be the number one target, the number one option every single game next year. We have to over-target him because he's open that much. If you go back and look at the games, Devontae Smith was open a lot. All right, so let's get straight into let's get back to the questions. The one in the shadow wrote, edge is the most important, and he listed Thibaut, Hutch, and Karlaftis. I can never say his name. With almost likely be gone at 15. Definitely probably will be gone. Maybe, never know. This is a long time until the draft, so the board is just going to be fluctuating. And the day of the draft, you never know. There's going to be trades, so some of these guys may slip. So we'll see. I'm not too high on Carla. Ojabo is the only defensive end that left that warrants a first round. So here's hoping Philly gets him. So that's not a bad idea. Ojabo is very good. He played second fiddle a little bit this year on that Michigan defensive line, but at the end of the day, he's got a lot of talent. His ceiling, his speed off the edge, he could be a problem in the NFL, so I wouldn't mind Ojabo. Taylor Harrison wrote, whichever players are the best available, never draft by position, especially in the middle or end of the first round, get the highest graded players. Taylor Harrison, I'm not opposed to that either. Obviously this team has needs. We need a safety. We need some offensive linemen. We need to take care of the defensive line. We definitely need a cornerback for the future because it looks like we're not going to get Nelson back. So we definitely need some specific players, but at the end of the day, we got to go with the best available at that time. And I hope that's what Howie is planning in his head and the rest of the guys in the front office. The Daredevil 69, edge first, David Ojabo or George, cornerback, Sauce if available. If not, then a linebacker, Lloyd. All those guys, I'm in love with all of those guys. Ojabo, Sauce, Lloyd, all three of those players are just ballers and that I see progressing into the NFL very nicely. I feel like these guys are going to be, definitely, Pro Bowlers down the line, especially Lloyd, like I mentioned earlier. Lloyd has got all the intangibles to be a Pro Bowler, multi-time Pro Bowler in the NFL. Corey Albert wrote, whoever's available in this order, Hamilton, Linderbaum, I'd trade up if one of those guys falls to 7 to 11. Linderbaum closer to 11. Karlaftis, Sauce Gardner, Ojabo, Booth, Lloyd, Dean, guys I'd like at the second. In the second are Brisker, Walker, and Thomas. Okay, so I haven't gotten to the second round yet, so I'm gonna stay more in the first round. All those guys he listed, I love all those guys. Those are going to be ballers in the NFL. VG wrote center, linebacker, cornerback, or center. Wide receiver if a good one drops. Linebacker, I wouldn't be surprised if they go offensive line. Okay, so center, we have to address that eventually. I know everybody, including myself, loves Jason Kelsey. This guy has been a pillar for that offensive line for a lot of years now, but he's getting up there in age. He's been contemplating retirement for many years now, and this year it might happen. I know Nick Sirianni sent him a couple kegs of beer to entice him to come back, but he may call it a career. He's won a Super Bowl. He's put in a lot of work in Philly, and I wouldn't be surprised if he calls it a career, and it would be a great career. Let's put JX19XX wrote, all defense in the first, please. And I hope we make a move for Calvin Ridley as well. That's what I like to hear. So if you've been following the channel for a while, I hope we get Calvin Ridley, man. Calvin Ridley is a sleeping giant at that wide receiver position. Yeah, some people think he gave up on his team this year. Some people say, he's not going to come back with the same mentality that he did before. And I disagree. We don't know what's going on in these guys' heads. If he had to take a step away to deal with, some mental health things, we already seen that happen to Lane Johnson and Brandon Brooks, and they came back better than ever. You know what I'm saying? So we have to respect that man and think about, what if we were out there taking hits to our head and our brains every single day, and, there's a lot of pressure involved. So I think he took the time away, and I think Calvin Ridley is going to come back better than ever, whether that's with Atlanta, whether that's on the Eagles, wherever he ends up next year, he's going to have a great season. And I think people are sleeping on him and his availability, because he already liked a post on Instagram or Twitter regarding him, possibly reuniting with his Bama boys in Philly. So it's on his mind. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that we trade for Calvin Ridley. And if we trade for Calvin Ridley, that makes our wide receiver core him, Devontae Smith, and those two players right there are such precise route runners that they would just be open all day long, because there's only one number one corner on the opposing team. You know what I'm saying? So they have to pick and choose who's going to get burnt up every game. And those two guys can run such crispy routes. I would just love to have them I'd love to have Calvin Ridley join his Bama boys in Midnight Green. I would just love to have it, man. Melvin Lewis wrote, edge rusher, linebacker, and corner. Pick up a veteran receiver in the offseason, Ridley or Adams, and then use all the other picks to fill in stops that can't hurt. I definitely agree with you. Obviously, I just talked about Ridley, so you guys know how I feel about him. Calvin Ridley is a sleeping giant. Adams, I think that's a long shot. I'm just going to be honest. I think getting Devontae Adams is a real big long shot. But if we have any chance at Devontae Adams, and we can have both Devontae Adams and Devontae Smith, the Devontae Bash brothers out there, I would just be overjoyed, man. Especially, considering that we have all these first round picks to shore up the deep. It would just be awesome. I would have a lot of good vibes going into next season, whether, Hurts is the quarterback or not, having those guys out there. So I definitely agree with you, Melvin. Jackie wrote, I think 49ers are proof. All you need is to be able to rush for and get pressure. That's a good point. We've seen what they did with Jimmy G. Jimmy G is like the worst fourth quarter quarterback I've ever seen. He just falls to pieces in the fourth quarter. And look, they still almost made the Super Bowl despite that. So I know a lot of people, dog Jalen Hurts for his lack of passing abilities out there. But at the end of the day, the kid still did pretty good for a second-year player, and it was really his rookie season. So we'll see what happens with that. NSG Jackson 442 wrote, Aiden Hutchinson is a very good prospect if available. Of course, if he somehow slides a little bit, I don't know why he would slide, but if that happens and we can move up to draft him, I think he's going to be a beast. He's going to be something like a Bosa at the next level. So if we could get our hands on Hutchinson, I'm all for it. But I don't really want to trade a lot of picks away to move up. I'm just being honest. I think a lot of the mid-round tier players are almost top 10 level players in this draft, especially on the defensive level and some of those wide receivers. So I'm not really too big on moving a lot of the picks unless it's for a player like Calvin Ridley. Unless we trade away a pick for Calvin Ridley. Okay, so Vincent wrote, edge, cornerback are two must-haves, and wide receiver, in my opinion, because best prospect available. Okay, so I see what you're saying. So if there's one of the top prospects at the wide receiver available at the time that we pick between 15 and 19, go for him. I tend to agree with you, my man, especially if we haven't made a move for Calvin Ridley or signed another, really good free agent, which there's some available. So we'll see how that shakes out. Free agency is approaching. Anthony Alacon wrote, Utah linebacker Devin Lloyd, Clemson Tigers Andrew Booth Jr., Michigan Wolverine David Ojabo. Okay, so those are three players that I've already covered in my, my draft prospects leading up to April 28th draft, which I'll be dropping a new video every single day. I've already dropped today's video. If you haven't checked it out, right after this live is over, go to the channel, watch all those videos. I'm covering a new player every single day leading up to the draft. So he touched on Devin Lloyd, Booth, and David Ojabo. Those are three players I've already covered, and I'm fascinated with those players, especially Devin Lloyd. I love that guy. I love what he brings to the table. He's got the above the shoulders, and he's got, the ability to make plays. He's just a stud, man. Someone wrote in the comments just now that we should go after Chris Godwin. Okay, so if we don't trade for Calvin Ridley, that's my number one guy, obviously, after Devontae Adams, who I think is a long shot. I think the next player after that is Chris Godwin. I think Chris Godwin, before he got injured this year, I think he was top 5. He was balling out of control this year. He was one of the main reasons that team was doing well. He made a lot of big catches, man. I think Chris Godwin, people are sleeping on him. I think he may be a Philly native, if I heard that correctly this week. So maybe, it's time to bring him home. So let me know in the comments how you feel about Chris Godwin. Like I said earlier, injuries, ACL tears, they bounce back a lot faster nowadays from those injuries. So I'm not concerned, but he is an older player. So he's not, a young guy like Jameson Williams on Alabama who tore his ACL. So, he may have a bit of a slower recovery time, but at the end of the day, I feel like Chris Godwin, he's young enough to come back, bounce back, and be the same player he was before the injury. Let's get straight to the next one. And if you're wondering where I'm reading these comments, I do a lot of polls on my channel. In the community tab on my page is this topic: would you trade or would you keep the 3 picks, and who would you draft, essentially? De La Torre wrote, I say Eagles go for a punter, a corner, and wide receiver, and sit out Jalen Rigg. Okay, well, obviously the punter is ridiculous. We're not taking a punter in the first round. But with that said, we have to address our punter, because if you were watching the last 2 or 3 games of the season, Sipos I don't know what happened to him. He became a pretty solid punter to the shank monster. So with that said, he's got to go. Yeah, he's got to go. We got to replace Sipos with a new punter, and maybe we can get one in the later rounds or something. I don't know. 7th round. I don't know. Alicia wrote, defense, worry about offense through free agency. I'm all for that. Obviously we can get 3 top tier draft prospects on the defensive side of the football in this upcoming draft. So I'm all for that. I'm all for defense. But I wouldn't mind a wide receiver in the first round either. It just depends on how free agency shakes out. I think Howie, the more I think about it, I think Howie's going to go three defensive players in the first round. BLSG wrote offensive lineman, linebacker, cornerback. That's not a bad idea. Obviously, Linderbaum. There's a few big guys on that offensive line that we could add through the draft. So we'll see how that goes. Brent Davis wrote, Eagles have to draft all defense. Why? Because our defense sucks. Okay, so I wouldn't say our defense sucks per se. I would say it was up and down this year as far as the personnel. I thought the linebackers bounced back and had a pretty good second half of the season. I thought the corners, led by Darius Slay, locked up all year for the most part. I think scheme, Jonathan Gannon, played a big role in, the deficiencies of the team as far as the defensive side goes. So I wouldn't say the defense sucks, but it needs some work and it needs to address a few positions that we need. Corey Clausen wrote, hopefully all bust. Well, you're a hater, so, thanks for the engagement though, bro. Sterling Alba wrote, first vote. Okay, so appreciate you for voting first, Sterling. But let's get straight into the fact that Jalen, he's dealing with the ankle injury. He's dealing with some doubters. He's dealing with a lot this offseason. He's got a lot of weight on his shoulder and a lot of pressure that he's got to bounce back from, because he finished the year The last game of the season was awful. Let's just keep it 100. This is the Eagles' real talk. So he was awful the last game of the season, and he's gonna have to have a really good offseason, a really good preseason. He's really got to come back next year if he wants to be the starting quarterback. But now that he has an ankle injury, it does raise more doubt. Is he gonna be injured more? Is he gonna be able to run the same? So a lot of people are bringing up this guy Pickett, who possibly is the top quarterback in the draft. I haven't done too much film on him yet, so I don't want to dive into Pickett, but he's not bad. You know what I mean? He definitely projects. He's the only quarterback I really like in this draft. Malik Willis, he's a solid project, but he's basically bringing in another Jalen, and I think Jalen's a better passer than him. So we'd just be, that doesn't really make sense for us if we're going to move on from Jalen. I'd rather keep Jalen on the contract that he's on and see what he's got in year 3. But, we'll see how the draft shakes up. But he's definitely got a lot of question marks this year, going into the offseason that I thought he was going to shed before the season was over and we wouldn't have all these questions, but we have a lot now. So, quarterback is definitely on the table. Let's be honest. Howie, he's a quarterback. He thinks of himself as somewhat of a quarterback guru. He talks about, we have a quarterback factory, and that's his thing. He loves quarterbacks. He's trying to find, the answer at quarterbacks since the Carson Wentz experiment went to hell, So we're gonna see this offseason where his mindset is. I think if he goes out there and gets a Godwin or gets a Calvin Ridley, I think that bodes well for Jalen Hurts. I think that says, oh, we believe in you, Jalen. We're going to give you one more year. We're going to give you one more year with more weapons, and we're going to see what you can do. So we're going to see how these next couple months go, but there's more questions than I thought about Jalen, even though I thought he had a solid year. Mechie wrote, let me get back to the question. So, who do you think will not re-sign with us? That's a good question, man. That's a really good question. We have, I think McLeod is up. I think we're gonna bring McLeod back. I feel like McLeod wants to finish his career rather in Philly. He won a Super Bowl here. He's been here the last 4 years. He's become that leader role that Jenkins was. Yeah, I think Jenkins kind of passed the torch to him, and now he's more of that leader role. But he's had a couple major injuries over the last year. He had that ACL last year, but he bounced back, and I thought he had a really good year this year, So I could see us re-signing him and bringing him back, but we'll see, We'll definitely see. Naheem Hood wrote, with the 15th, 16th, and 19 draft picks, if the Eagles end up with Devin Lloyd, Andrew Booth, and David Ojabo, I would give these draft picks collectively an A+. And I agree with you, Hood. I agree with you, my man. Because if we get those three, that's like my dream scenario, those three guys. You know what I mean? I think that's toughness. I think those are guys that are smart. I think those are players that will translate to the NFL and be able to, some guys, that physicality, as soon as you get to the NFL, the physicality hits different. No pun intended. So these guys don't translate the same. Not every draft pick in the first round is going to be a knockout pick. But I think those three guys you mentioned are really good, and I would love to have those guys in Philly. Blaze Sellers wrote, I also who surprised you the most this season? Who surprised me the most? Who surprised me the most? That's a good question. That's actually a really good question. I would say Nick Sirianni. I would say Nick Sirianni surprised me the most because he came out. Everybody doubted this guy. I thought he actually was a solid hire. After hearing his excitement and the way he talks about football, I thought he's someone that really loves football, who would identify with the Eagles culture and the fan base, and that's what he did. He embraced it. He did the whole shirts thing. He did all that. But he came out and he surprised me because he wouldn't run the ball, and he talked about we have Miles, we have this, we have that. And he came out and we would not run the ball. And it was mystifying for me. It had me perplexed, to say the least. I thought that we would be a running team to start, but lo and behold, halfway through the season, something clicked, something snapped in his head, and we became a running team. And he surprised me in the fact that he went from a coach that maybe could be a one and done or, just not here for too long, to being a coach where, okay, maybe this guy has what it takes to make the adjustments, to do what it takes to galvanize a team that's not playing too well. And I think he's a good coach, and I think he surprised me after starting off 2-5 and him being, one of the main reasons we weren't doing well, to be totally honest. A lot of his play calling was poor, and he turned it around. So that surprised me. Naheem Hood wrote, Jalen Reagor, late round draft pick for Calvin Ridley. If we could do that, that's like a dream scenario for everybody, including, Jalen Reagor. I think he would do well or okay in ATL, and obviously I would be very excited if we got Calvin Ridley. Mechie wrote, I think we get a wide receiver in free agency, to be honest. I think so too. I think that's a little bit more likely at this point, but I still think a first-round draft pick is definitely, a wide receiver is definitely still on the table, especially for Howie. He wants to rectify the fact that he got Jalen Reagor. So I think he wants to fix that. And whether it's in free agency or it's, outside, it's outside in the draft, he's got to do what he's got to do because he's got to fix that position. That's definitely been bringing down the team. And if Jalen Hurts had a better option out there, maybe he would have had a better year passing. You never know. So let's get down. I want Ridley and Robinson. Watkins can be a fourth receiver. That if we can get those, if we can get both of those guys, obviously that changes the whole dynamic of the team. We have two veterans, a young guy, and we got Quez. So, that would change our whole trajectory as a team, I think. I think that would make us one of the top teams offensively in the league if we get Allen Robinson and Ridley. That would be crazy. Adams is a reach. He's going where Rodgers is going. That's what I said a couple months ago. I don't even think Rodgers is going anywhere. If he can't win, if he can't get back to the Super Bowl in Green Bay, how is he going to get to the Super Bowl at another team starting fresh, starting over, doing all this? He's not going to have the same success that he has at home that he has in Green Bay. And yes, I know Stafford just made the transition. Now he's in the Super Bowl. I know Tom Brady did it last year, but honestly, I think those were two rare cases. I don't think that's going to be done again. And like I said, as good as A-Rod is, he can't win the big game. He can't. The last 4 or 5 years, he can't get it done. Actually, the last 10 years, he can't get it done. He can't even get back to the Super Bowl. So I don't see him leaving unless, something crazy happens. But I think he's going to stay in Green Bay. So I agree with you to some certain extent. Naheem wrote, Mike Williams, wide receiver, would be a great free agent addition for the Eagles. Okay, so let's talk about Mike Williams. Mike Williams, I'm going to be honest with you guys, he's not my favorite, okay, because he's got a lot of injuries. He's pull up his injury report, Google it right now, pull it up and look at all his injury history. It's a lot. And, we've already had issues with guys not being able to stay healthy already. So to bring him in, I don't know. I'm not thrilled about it. And would I be, okay with it? Would I be, somewhat, cool with it? Yeah, I would be, because he's still a big body. He's reliable, and he's a veteran, so he knows the game. And I think he would be good for us, but I just wouldn't be super excited about it just because of his injury history. SSB Kiz wrote, Eagles need Chris Godwin. Do Eagles need the Kelly Green? Okay, well, I have a video dropping this week on the Kelly Green. I'm going to do a whole history on the Kelly Green. We got to bring it back next year. Next year is the year we bring back the Kelly Green. I love the midnight green. A lot of people don't really like the midnight green, but the midnight green, where have you ever seen that color anywhere else? You've never seen midnight green on another team, especially in the NFL. I can't think of one in the NBA. I can't think of one in the MLB. NHL, I can't think of midnight green anywhere. So I think it's kind of it's our color. Philly, Eagles fans, just everything about Philly is different. We're built different, as a fan base. And I think, the midnight green kind of matches that. But with that said, the Kelly green just pops, baby. You know what I'm saying? It just pops. And, I've seen some renders of, some possible Kelly green jerseys next year. And I think that would be dope. I think that would be, the move to make. Sexton 99, I like the midnight green. It's dope. I agree with you, man. I think some people hate on it. I think, let's be honest too, some Eagles fans are just always disgruntled about something. As much as I love y'all, there's always one or two out of 10 Eagles fans who just mad and angry about something. So, they just like to pick at that midnight green as not a good color, but it's unique. No one else has it. And whenever you see midnight green, you think of the birds. So I think that's kind of cool personally. Mechie wrote, why I got a feeling Jalen Hurts going to have an MVP season this next year. Now that's the ideal scenario for us. Let's be honest. And let's be real. There was a few weeks in the season where he was playing really well. He was passing the ball better. He was running the ball, getting freaky out there. We seen what he did to the Saints. And there was a few people saying that he's creeping into the MVP category. That was going around. So, it's not out of the realm of possibility that he could go out there, bust his butt this year, be able to have more weapons that he's ever had, and go out there a second year with Nick Sirianni and go out there and have, an MVP-like season. It's not out of the realm of that's the thing about Jalen. He's like a wild card, He kind of leaves you he leaves you wanting more, but he also leaves you with, a fascination side where you're excited to watch him play. You're excited to see what he's going to do this week. So, he's an interesting player. He's very divisive in the Eagles community. I understand that, but I like Jalen, man. I hope he has an MVP season next year. It's the best case scenario for us. And, we got to hope for the best for Jalen. But with that said, you never know. He may not even be here next year. So we'll see. SSB Kiz wrote, can Gainwell be RB1? I don't think so. I think he's more suited for an RB2 role. I think him and Miles next year can be a 1-2 punch to some degree. But at the end of the day, if we're going to keep Miles and we're going to keep Kenny Gainwell, we got to bring in a bruiser. And I think we're going to draft one this year. I think we're going to draft one between the second and fourth round. I think we're going to bring in a bruiser, a big body guy that can go out there, catch the ball a little bit too, and possibly be Miles' replacement, because Miles has had a lot of injuries and his position on this team is not written in stone. He could definitely be, here for the future, but it really depends on more of his health situation. He just has a lot of injuries. They're starting to add up. Hand, ankle, knee. I mean, it's becoming a lot. And if you're an injury-prone guy, I said earlier, the best ability is availability. And if you can't play, we got to move on from you. And I think that's definitely on Howie's mind this offseason. It's a lot of injuries mounting up for Miles. Sacred Eagle wrote, Kelly Green needs a comeback. It's been way too long. When's the last time I'll give you guys a minute. When's the last time we wore the Kelly Green? I'll give you a minute to let me know. I remember very clearly. It was a good day to be a bird that day. I'll say that. Especially for me, considering, I'm a big fan of this player that was wearing the midnight green that day. I'll give you guys a hint. We are playing the Green Bay Packers. SSB Kids wrote, remember when Hurts played with D-Jax? He did. That was he only had D-Jax for a little bit because, D-Jax was another injury-prone guy who couldn't stay on the field. 2011, you're close. You're very close. But it was. We'll see. We'll see if Hurts gets another player like that can extend the field. But he had Quez this year, and he missed Quez a lot. So the deep ball with Jalen Hurts is my biggest flaw in his game. He's got to be able to hit these guys in stride for these long, deep touchdowns because Quez, he's got boost, man. He is fast. And if we can get him the ball deep down the field, that's the best case scenario. Sexton 99 wrote, I think Jalen is a great leader. I agree with you. That's that's 2014. That's not correct. That's not correct. You are wrong, SSB. Keep guessing, guys. Keep guessing. Don't Google it. Just keep guessing. I'll let you know very shortly, though. When's the last time we wore the Kelly green? It was against the Packers. I'll tell you that. So Rock the Artist wrote, DJ Chark, wide receiver, don't mind getting him in free agency. He's another wide receiver that I wouldn't mind either. He's coming off an injury-plagued year. I think he had a foot injury. A lot of stuff was going on, but he's going to bounce back. He's young enough to bounce back. He had a really good year, years prior. So he was obviously playing in Jacksonville where wide receivers, their careers go to die. So, we'll see how he bounces back. 2013, wrong. 2012, wrong. Keep guessing. All right. It was 2010. Mike Vick had to check in the game for Kevin Kolb after he was concussed. We were playing the Green Bay Packers. I think it was Aaron Rodgers' third or fourth season in the NFL. It was a game, obviously, at the Link, and yeah, it was a game where Kevin Kolb was making his first start. We just had moved on from McNabb, and it was a new era, and we thought Kevin Kolb would possibly be it. I didn't personally. I wasn't a Kevin Kolb guy. Obviously, I was a Mike Vick guy. And as soon as Mike Vick checked in the game that second half, we had action. So that was a really fun game. I definitely have vivid memories of that game. I was excited for Mike Vick's return, and it was a fun game. I believe 2010. So let's check out the chat. Naheem wrote, 2 Eagles players I definitely need to get traded this offseason. Offensive tackle Dillard, okay, and wide receiver Reagor to the highest bidder. It may not be a high bid for Reagor, but I think Dillard showed a lot this year in his limited time where we could get a pick for him. I think we could trade him away, get a pick for him. I'm not too thrilled about bringing him back, to be totally honest. I've seen enough to know that he's not the future offensive tackle, but he's something that we could make moves with, and we can get assets and stack assets with, and just take the loss of him being a first round bust. Because that's what he is. He's not a true first rounder. I wouldn't say he's a bust, but as far as the first round goes, he wasn't. He hasn't lived up to that. So let's get back to the chat. Dang, it was a year off. I said 2011. I was a year off. Yeah, you were close, man. It was a good game too. I just remember the Eagles fell behind. We fell behind, and at halftime, he didn't come back. Kevin Kolb, he didn't come back the second half, and we rolled Mike Vick out there and let it come back. So I think later on that year we ended up losing to the Packers in the playoffs, if I'm not too mistaken. I believe it was 2010. But that was a fun year to be an Eagles fan for sure. Well, that's going to do it for me, guys. We've been going for 53 minutes. I really appreciate all your guys' engagement. This has been an awesome experience. If you've seen my post, I just reached over 1,000 subscribers, and I was able to become an official YouTube partner. So, it's just going back to when I started this in July 28th. It was one of my goals. I didn't know how long this would take. I didn't know if I would even able to be monetized and be, an official YouTube partner. But I worked my butt off, And, thanks to you guys and my family, my friends, my girlfriend support, all of you guys are the reason that I'm here now and I'm able to do this for a living. I'm able to, actually, make money from these YouTubes from all the hard work that I put in. And I really appreciate you guys for rocking with me, leaving comments, leaving likes, sharing my videos, doing all that. I really appreciate you guys. So thanks for rocking with me. I'm Bry Wolf, and this has been Eagles News Live for Eagles Real Talk. And as always, go Birds and keep it real always. Peace out, y'all. I'll see you on the next live video.